So, what the fuck? The world feels crazy right now. I think that we can all relate to a time, whether it's right now or it's been in the past, where everything around you just feels so chaotic and so overwhelming. And the way that I've come to explain it in many a therapy session, it feels like there's just a tornado swirling around me. And like literally any other input would just send me all the way over the edge. Like I cannot handle a single more thing. Like one more thing and I will quite literally spontaneously combust. And this feeling, this tornado, as we will refer to it, can happen just because life, just your life and the things that life throws at you, lifing. But what doesn't help is when the whole entire world also feels like this too. And that's honestly what this feels like for me right now. I feel like we're all a little bit more prone to this energy of feeling like we are just stuck in this chaos and one more thing and we will be sent over the motherfucking edge. The world just feels crazy right now. And amongst all of the craziness, you can start to feel like, what even is the point? And maybe you're feeling that way right now. Like, what is the point of anything, of me doing anything? And I'm going to be so real with you. I was really feeling this last week. And that's a shitty feeling. It's a fucking scary feeling. I just was feeling like, what is the point? Like, who cares? Who cares if I show up and post a podcast or show up online and post a little TikTok or a little Instagram or not? Like, quite literally, my home city is burning to the ground. Who gives a fuck what I have to say about setting New Year intentions or manifesting or a challenge that I was gonna do starting off the new year with? Like, who gives a fuck? But that thought process is so dangerous. That is what they want, is for us to just stop, for us to just stop sharing our light, to just roll over, to just surrender to the chaos that's happening around us, because it is happening. And I'm going to do my best to give you some light in this episode, but we're not here with that toxic positivity type bullshit where we're going to ignore the fact that there is chaos happening in the world right now. We're going to acknowledge that. We're going to look at that. But we're also going to make an effort to not dim our light in the face of that. And that's really what this episode is going to be about. Maybe you're somebody who's feeling these sort of feelings right now because you are directly impacted by some of this chaos that I allude to in the world. Or maybe you are someone who is frozen by your empathy and you're feeling the pain of the world, which I'm willing to bet that a lot of you guys here are probably those people, highly sensitive, highly empathetic, highly intuitive, and all of this shit can feel crippling. I want to make this episode for both people. So somebody who might actually be going through the shit, whether it's one of these big events that's happening in the world, like the Los Angeles fires, or anything else happening in the world, or something happening within your own family unit that is tragic and causing suffering for you and the people that you love. Or maybe this is something that you're going to listen to now and you're going to keep these tips and these tools in mind down the line when maybe you go through a hard time or life just feels chaotic. It doesn't always have to be this like big crazy event that happens. Like I can feel this feeling just from life, right? Like lifing. And like I said, maybe you're one of those people who just feels so strongly the empathy for what the world is going through, and you don't know what to do with that. You don't know how to move forward or what you can do. I want to make this as applicable for everyone, wherever you are in that. Now, before we get into everything, I just want to give a disclaimer. This is obviously a heavy topic, okay? And if you're sitting here listening to this right now, you might be going through a pretty heavy time. Or if you're just in the world, you can feel the heaviness of the world right now. And with that, like everything is already heavy enough. Like there's enough of this heaviness, this density, this darkness going around right now, okay? So although we are going to be covering a heavy topic, I want to bring lightness. I want to help to uplift you. And I don't know, if I add some humor or some lightness or some silliness or some of my personality into this, I don't want any of that to be taken as insensitive at all. That's not how I feel, and that's not my motive. But I did not spend hours today trying to get my energy right for this to not spread some good energy here. Okay, so it's not like I have a joke scripted to tell you in this episode, but who knows? I just want to make that disclaimer that like in no way am I trying to be insensitive with anything. It's honestly hard to put into words, but with today's day and age of the internet, I just feel like you have to throw out anything. Like we can be sad and we can feel the density of this, and we can also smile too. The two can both be true, and the two can both exist at once. So that's disclaimer number one. My motto is and always has been to spread good energy. And so that is what I am here to do. Even through a heavy topic, I'm going to do my best to leave you with good energy. And disclaimer number two, I just want to make this clear that this is not necessarily advice for someone whose house just burnt down. Okay, it can be, and it can help somebody going through something really difficult like that. And if that is you, my heart is with you. I pray that you can take a piece of what you hear here in this episode with you to help you however it may through what you're navigating. But the advice that I'd give someone who's going through something like that would be a lot different than the advice that I'm going to give in this episode, because first and foremost, that advice would just be to feel and process what you're moving through right now. Point blank, period. That's all you need to focus on right now, really. But this episode and who I'm speaking to here is broad. Let's be real. Chances are, if you are sitting down listening to this right now, you probably aren't someone who was affected at that level. I want to hit points for everyone, so keep that in mind. Everyone's struggle is different, and how somebody may need to move through that, process that, work through those emotions is going to be different. So this is not like a one size fits all. This is just some guidance for you, whether you're moving through something now, you're feeling the heaviness of the world, or you're going to move through something later, to take what serves you now and leave what doesn't. And if you are someone who is going through just the absolute trenches of life right now, first of all, major shout out to you for even being here, clicking on or listening to anything self-development right now. That's awesome and just shows your strength and resiliency. And my one piece of advice for you again, is to just feel and process. Take all the time that you need to do that. Don't worry about getting back to where you were or being productive or being in a high positive energy or vibe. Like, your job right now is to feel, to process, and to work through the trauma that you are experiencing right now. And I'm saying all of this just out of the disclaimer so that I don't get a comment that's like, how dare you tell someone whose house just burnt down to try to focus more on the positive, or whatever the fuck somebody might try to say. Because, and I'm going to speak directly to those people who would comment that right now, I'm telling them to feel that shit. I'm telling you to be more of a light in the world right now so that we can actually get together and help those people who need our light right now. Okay? Okay. I have this quote that I want to share from Ram Dass before we get into the sort of pointers that I have to share with you today on how to stay grounded in light amongst the chaos. But I feel like this is a good anchor point for us to just all kind of be on the same page with the topic of suffering, really, and the importance of being able to be a lighthouse for people who are suffering and a strong anchor for them to hold on to. So this quote from Ram Dass says, "The trap is, if you're identified with being a doer, your predicament is that when you see suffering, you feel you're supposed to take it away. And if you can't take it away, you feel inadequate. And you fear feeling impotent in the face of suffering. Your heart's breaking and there's nothing you can do about it." Well, that's true most of the time. And if that's true most of the time, and you can't stand it, most of the time, you can't stand yourself and it. The fact is, I can't take away people's death and suffering when I'm working with their death and suffering. But I can be a presence where they can shift their consciousness in a way so they don't experience their death and suffering the same way. But I can't take away all the stuff from people. And the ability to be with somebody where your heart is breaking because they're suffering and you do not have the power to take away that suffering, and the feeling you have under those conditions has got to be reflected upon. You have to take the time to reflect upon that in order to find peace within that situation. Our heart, naturally, being empathetic people, and if you're here, if you're listening to this, I know that you are, is going to break in the face of suffering. And it's okay for us to feel that way. It's okay for us to have those emotions and those feelings and to honor them. But we also have to remember that our job in the face of someone else's suffering, our energy is best utilized to be a strong anchor, to be a lighthouse, to be a source of light to help to shift their consciousness when they can't do that for themselves. So if you're in the privileged position right now to not be directly affected by the suffering that's happening in the world, a lot of what I'm going to say here is really going to be for you, because it's what can we do to continue to be a light for those who can't right now. I remember when my grandmother was dying and sitting next to her and knowing that it was my last time seeing her. And I knew it and she knew it. While acknowledging that we were both sad and that it was a sad thing, and letting it be sad, not trying to deny the fact that it's sad, telling her that I'm going to miss her and all of that being so real. I also felt this need to just be strong for her right then, because although me and my family were suffering too, she was the one in pain. And in that moment, two things could be true. Again, I could be sad and I could be hurting, and I could use my energy to spread light and love to her and just be that point of light and love for her amongst the suffering. And I know that when it's the world that we're talking about, the world is suffering and there's so much happening and so many people dealing with so much, and you're in your home sitting comfortably. It can feel like, what can I do? Like, what can I do? I'm one person. And so I want to give us, along with that Ram Dass quote, another sort of anchor point as we move into these topics. And that is an explanation of kind of how I think of energy, or at least of energy in the terms of darkness and light in the world. And you may have heard people saying that we are amidst spiritual warfare of dark and light. And that is a whole other rabbit hole and topic for another time that we're not going down right now, okay? But I want to give you this imagery, this understanding in a way that helps me to understand it, of how your light, how being grounded in your light, as small as you may feel, can make such a huge difference. So I want you to think of all consciousness, collective consciousness, every energy in the world creating this liquid ocean, okay? All of our energy molding together to create this ocean. And this ocean is orange, okay? Stick with me. And the color red signifies darkness, dark energy, okay? And yellow signifies light energy, okay? And what do you get when you mix red and yellow? You get orange. So that is why we have this typically orange ocean. That is this mix of darkness and light. And yes, I did have to look up a color wheel to get this right, to be able to explain this. I'm not proud of that, but I'm being real. So again, ocean is orange, red is the dark, yellow is the light. Now imagine that you have a bad day, okay? You're just this little angry red ball of hate that day, okay? We've all been there. It's okay. And so I want you to imagine that you puff out this liquid paint or light of red into that ocean. Okay, so that's your contribution into that ocean that day. It's darkness. Okay, the red is darkness. And now imagine if there's a wave of something happening in the world where it's putting a lot of us in the energy of hate. Maybe we're turning against each other, or there's just a lot of anger and rage and chaos. Like right now in the world, right? And so what does this do? We're all in this like angry state. We're all in this rage state, and we're all putting more of this red, dark energy into this ocean. And now the ocean is turning more and more red. Okay, so the darkness is kind of taking over the entire collective energy. Okay, now I want you to imagine if you choose to be light. So you choose to go out of your way that day to spread light, as big or small as it may be. And let's just say that it's one person that you come into contact with that you positively impact and spread light to, okay? So your yellow goes into the ocean that day. And let's say that person goes home to their family of 5. And because of your yellow, they also influence the rest of their family to be light, to embody, to share, to express light energy that day. So now they're contributing yellow to the ocean of energy, okay? And then one of the children goes to school and spreads that energy to their classmates. Now all of their energy in the ocean is yellow. And the teacher then goes home and shares it with her husband, and then he's the CEO of a mega company, and then he spreads it to his entire company, and so on and so on and so on. So because of you one day embodying this light energy and spreading light into the world, there is this massive butterfly effect beyond what you could ever possibly imagine. And so your light matters. And in the same way, it goes with the darkness. So even if the majority of the world is in anger, in rage, in chaos, and flooding our collective energetic ocean with darkness, all of us sitting here listening to this now can choose to spread light, and that is going to multiply beyond what we can even imagine. So I just want you to understand how important you are and how significant you are. Even from the smallest action, it creates a larger effect than any of us with our human brains can comprehend. So now getting into our points. It's funny because when I sat down to record this podcast, I was like, I'm going to make a 30-minute podcast. I can't do anything short form. I just really can't. I have so much to say. So from that explanation, from that ocean analogy, I hope that you can see and start to understand how the darkness wins when we go dark. And what I mean by that is when we shut off our light, and whether that's because we're getting swept up in this collective momentum of negative energy that is contagious, the fear, the anger, the just negativity. And that's, again, not to say that we don't feel our very real feelings and we let out our rage or we express our disapproval with the corruptness or wrong in the world, or that we don't grieve with our neighbors and our brothers and sisters in the world as they grieve. That's not to say that at all. I mean, when we really get swept up in it to the point that we dim our light, or we forget the power of our light, or we just stop being in our light at all, or sharing our light, however we may do that. And I want to share a bit of a very personal example of that. And basically, with everything that's happened in the world over the last few years, I really started to shrink. I started to contract. And I mean, I shared with you here, started feeling like, what is the point? Who cares what I have to say? And really, the core of this is that I lost my purpose. My purpose always has been, from the start, spreading good energy. Both of my businesses, that is my mantra. That is our anchor point, to spread good energy. And just amidst all the bullshit, all the chaos, all the craziness in the world, it's like I lost that was my purpose. That is what I did it all for. And actually, it really affected me when last year I actually had a friend who basically stopped being my friend. Basically told me that she wanted to distance herself from me, were her words, because I continued with my business during the war happening in Gaza. And the thing with that is, I have a team. So I have a team that I pay. I'm not just responsible for paying my own bills. I'm also responsible for paying my team's bills. So when we stop running our business, that means my team doesn't get paid. And meanwhile, behind the scenes, I had donated thousands. And this isn't like to brag or anything. I'm not somebody who talks about this kind of stuff because I do my part not to tell people about it. Like I just do it. Although I'm sharing links to donate, and behind the scenes, I, as an empathetic person, was distraught, was disturbed, was enraged. But at that time, I still was really anchored in my purpose and that I was still going to show up and be positive and be a light. And so that's what I did. And I continued to share content and I continued to promote my program that actually, if you look into it more beyond the surface level, it's about deep healing and trauma healing and processing and soul healing and subconscious rewiring, all of the tools that actually helped quite literally save my life from when I was depressed and had eating disorders and all the things. And these were the exact steps and tools that I took to overcome that. And yes, also build the beautiful life that I have now and this dream life that I've created among the healing that is also within that program as well. Anyways, all this to say that it was losing a friend over, I guess, the misunderstanding of me showing up and me continuing to share stuff that really started to shrink me and started to make me hyper aware and just feel like if something was going on in the world, I had to hide and I shouldn't be talking about anything or doing anything or sharing anything. And I would go in and out of becoming anchored to my purpose again and feeling like I could share and speak freely and being inspirational and motivational and the whole thing, no matter what was going on in the world, and then shrinking again and feeling like, am I bragging or am I talking too much about positive things when there's suffering happening in the world and I shouldn't be talking about these positive things? And honestly, for the last year, I've been in this like cycle, and it took me taking this break over the winter to realize and trace it back to that event of losing a friendship that just made me shrink and made me dim my light because of the darkness that is in the world. And I now realize, and I knew it then, but I know it so much deeper now, that that's the opposite of what we need in these times. Is we need the light. We need your light. We need my light. We need everybody's individual light, however you can show up and spread it. Which brings me to my next point, that your service may look different than others and your processing may look different than others. Personally, I like to process privately, but I feel like the modern day world makes us feel like we need to emotionally process publicly. Like we need to put our emotions on display for the world to almost prove that we are sympathetic or that we have feelings of empathy. Behind the scenes, with everything that's happened in the world, as a highly sensitive person, as an empathetic person, God, I've been sick to my stomach seeing the stuff that media exposes us to. Like if you think back to previous generations, like they didn't see that. And God, my heart breaks for the people who actually see it and experience it and are affected by it in person and so intimately. And the whole world is seeing this stuff, and obviously we're affected by it. But I feel like there's this sense that we need to put on this public display of like our emotion when it's already hard enough to be a person right now, to be in this crazy time of the world. That why do we make it harder for people by like berating them to show emotion online or process the way that we might process or show up the way that we might show up, because we don't really know what people are going through or doing behind the scenes. And that's something for all of us to remember, is that we don't know. But I want to just hold space for all of us during this crazy time of the world to let you know that whatever you're doing to deal with all of this is valid. And however you're feeling is valid. And you don't need to put on this display for social media or for your friends or for the public eye that you're feeling some way right now, that you see the tragedy in the world and it's breaking your heart. Don't feel like your way of serving, of showing up right now, of being of service to the world has to look the way that somebody else's Instagrammable service looks. All of our service, all of our light, all of our spreading of light in the world is going to look different. And maybe you're someone who it's important for you to stay a positive lighthouse, a light during this time. And that's your way of showing up and being of service to the world. Maybe you're someone who is really passionate about the atrocities and the corruption and the wrong that's happening right now, and exposing the darkness and educating people on that. And I wouldn't say that that's spreading more of the darkness. I'd say that that's waking people up and that's spilling the tea in the truth. And we need that too. So your service, your light isn't a one size fits all. And neither is your processing or your grieving for yourself and your family and your community or the world at large, or people thousands and thousands of miles away from you that you will never meet, but you share their pain as a human. Which brings me to my next point, which is guilt suffering is the word I'm going to use for this. I don't have a proper word for this, but guilt suffering sounds right. Often, especially as empathetic people, highly sensitive people, intuitive people, we feel like we need to suffer when we see suffering. This is also, I think, intensified by social media discourse and, again, this like feeling like you must express your grieving or your processing or your emotions publicly to be right, to be socially acceptable. We live in crazy, weird times, you guys. But even beyond that, I think a lot of us can share this feeling of almost feeling guilty for not suffering while we see other people suffering. And so then we guilt suffer. So we start suffering because we feel guilty for not suffering. For example, I really fell into this sort of hole with the LA fires because I just moved out of LA just a few months ago. And even the Sunset fires, they were right where my last house was right above Runyon. And all of my friends were evacuating their homes, and you're seeing these videos of the community, and just I felt so helpless because I'm far away now and I couldn't be there to help. And so I started feeling really sad and down and depressed, which all valid, all normal feelings for any of us to feel right now. But I had to catch myself and be like, is this the best use of my energy? Again, after giving myself some days to process all of this, because it was a lot to process. But at some point I had to wake up and realize me being thousands of miles away, safe in my home, thank God, it's not helping these people in Los Angeles for me to just be suffering beside them, who are actually suffering. These people who have lost their homes, have had to pack bags with their most treasured belongings and leave their homes not knowing if they will come back to a standing home and all of their belongings. Everyone there breathing the smoke in and the effects of that. Like, this is real suffering there. And me suffering over here is not actually helping them. And there's this quote that came to mind that I want to share with you that actually helped me a lot in the beginning of my manifestation journey too, to not feel guilty when I started manifesting money and having not come from money and the guilt that that gave me. This quote really helped with it and has helped me again now through this, that you can never be poor enough to help the poor, and you can never suffer enough to help people who are suffering. So by keeping ourselves down, keeping ourselves small or in poverty or in poor health or suffering in any manner, bringing ourselves there does not help the people that are there. It doesn't do anything for them or for you. And so the best thing that we can do is, if we are able to, if we are in the privileged space to not be suffering, to be in good health, to have resources, the best thing that we can do is to embrace that and to do something positive with it. And in this case, with everything going on, if you are privileged enough to be safe, to really not have a real immediate direct threat to your home, your family, your safety, and so on, the best thing that you can do is be in your light and be that drop of yellow in the ocean and allow that to take on the butterfly effect of creating more and more and more light to be of service to the people who really need that light right now. And again, this can look in many ways. It might be you being a light and just spreading good energy and love to the world. Or it may be like some of the amazing people I have seen on the ground of LA. Some of them I'm lucky enough to call my friends, who have been creating these groups and gathering resources and volunteering and donating, like all hands on deck for their city, because maybe they're in a safe zone, but their neighbors aren't, people literally just a few minutes down the road aren't. And I think that is the perfect example of, obviously, their hearts are hurting for what's happening in their community, for losing their city, but getting it together and doing what they can because they are safe and they are healthy and they have a home. And so although their heart is absolutely breaking, they're still showing up and they are being a light for those who just can't be right now. And that's what helps, is your light. And like I said, your service can look so different from another's. Maybe it is organizing these hands-on services, or maybe it's providing a donation. Maybe it's fostering an animal that's been displaced. Just showing up as a positive light and good energy in your community, because that goes such a long way. Like a simple smile can literally save someone's life. Or maybe it's just, and I say just lightly, continuing to show up for your family and to be there for your children or for your parents, or even taking care of your own mental health. And that's your best expression of your light right now, is taking care of yourself. And that's totally valid too. You should not be guilted because your service looks different than someone else's, and you should not feel less than because of that. And you shouldn't not do anything because you don't feel like it's big enough. And I actually want you to journal on this today, and literally every day. Like, make this a part of your routine, at least for some while, amongst the chaos in the world right now, to help you to remember the power and the importance of you staying anchored in your light and making that a priority. I want you to journal 5 ways that you have positively impacted the world today. And I know that 5 sounds like a lot, but I want you to understand and keep in mind that butterfly effect and the way you just being that yellow droplet in the ocean, whatever that may be, and whatever might be required for you to be that yellow droplet, that is huge. So it could literally be that you made your bed today, and that is one of the ways that you positively impacted the world because your bed was made, you're just feeling in a better energy, and therefore you're more enabled to be that yellow drop in the ocean and be that source of light. It could be being nice to your coworker who was quite frankly being a bitch, but you don't know why she's being a bitch. And so you choose to, although you could snap back with some pretty nasty shit, you choose to be a nice person, a source of light for her because you don't know what she's navigating. It can really be anything, but the purpose of this exercise is that I want you to start seeing how all of the abstract ways that you are actually benefiting the world and how special you are and how important you are and how valuable your light is. I want you to really understand how much the world needs your light now more than ever, and let this be motivation for you to continue to support yourself, to show up and be a light, to continue to spread that energy because it is infectious and it will spread to other people and it will create this butterfly effect. Like, let me be so real. I didn't necessarily want to show up and record anything this week. Like, I still was feeling like so heavy, and I was like, what do I have to give? And it was on meditating what I have to give that I realized that my light is enough. Just me showing up with the intention to spread light, period, is enough to spread light. And from there, so much flooded from me, right? Like the idea of this podcast and all the points that I'm sharing with you and everything flooded from simply holding the intention of wanting to just spread light. My next point that I want to make, or more of, I guess, a reminder, is to put on your mask first. This is a little airplane analogy. I'm sure that you've heard it before, that they say, you know, in case of emergency, if you need to put on an oxygen mask, put yours on first before you put it on a child or someone next to you. This is the same for any difficult time that you may be going through. So whether you are someone who's, again, directly going through something right now that you and your family are dealing with, or even if you're someone who just wants to help, it's so important that you make sure that you're doing what you need to do to literally take a shot every time I say this. Show up in your light. Now, I want to make it clear that showing up in your light is not showing up as your most productive self. It's not as much about what you do as it really is how you be. And then that is pumped into naturally every single thing that you do. Just like how I said, my simple intention of wanting to spread light influenced and inspired the decision to actually sit down and record this. And in many cases, although of course the actions that we do are useful and helpful, but what usually inspires those actions are being in that, I want to say positive energy, but it's not necessarily positive because, like I said, the two can exist at once. You can be hurting, you can be sad, and you can be in the intention, in the being of light. And it's more about that. It's more about being grounded into that, because from that, it will influence more positive actions, more useful actions that are actually, and I guess I'm going to use this term, you could say like divinely inspired, because instead of doing what you think that you should do, you're actually moving from love, you're moving from light, and that in definition is divinely inspired. I want to put this into tangible terms for you. In a family that is suffering, going through a hard time, the children aren't going to remember as much if mom kept the house clean, kept laundry going, kept everything pristine, kept up with her normal sort of supermom duties, making sure everything is perfect and put together. That won't be as meaningful to them than if mom was there for them when they were sad and scared and held them and told them that she's scared too and she's sad too and that that's okay and that they're going to get through it. Simply being in her light, being present in the long term will have a greater impact than cleaning the house. Does that make sense? But to do that, to be able to show up like that, because it's a lot harder than it sounds when you too are suffering, when you too are feeling just taken over by the heaviness and the chaos and the weight of the world. It's a lot harder to show up like that, like to get your energy right, to feel strong, to feel like you have that light moving through you, when the easier thing is to surrender, quite frankly, to the darkness. Back to putting on the mask for yourself first. You're feeling good, and I put good in quotation marks because, again, many things can be true at once, but you're feeling able to show up in your light should be your number one priority. And that doesn't mean that you're not sad or you're not scared or you're not feeling these very real and very dense and heavy emotions. You're feeling them, and you can be real about them, and you can tell people, like, I'm sitting here right now and telling you, like, I'm scared and I'm sad and I feel the heaviness of the world right now. And we can be real about that, and we can talk to people about that. We don't have to hide our feelings, but it's that you are intentionally moving from and towards the light for yourself and for others. You hold a vision of good, of better days, of a brighter future for yourself and for others, while also acknowledging the very real and present pain. And sometimes all that goes out the window when you're really in the trenches and all you can do is just grieve and just feel and just be with what is right there and then. But when you have kind of come out the other side of that and you've kind of gone to the place of processing, like I said, it took me a few days, then I kind of came on board to be like, where is my energy best utilized right now? Not in me just like being sad, you know, like, although I am sad and I am scared, my energy isn't best utilized there. My service and what I have to share with the world is like showing up here, you know, or showing up in my courses and for my community. And of course, in other ways, like donating and reaching out and seeing how I can help. But the way to even get to that point where you can help is by asking what you need. What do you need to be able to get to that place of even being able to hold that vision of a brighter future, of better days for others and for yourself? And this is your time to really be selfish and really be real about what you need. For me, for one, that's boundaries with being on my phone or news. Honestly, like, my boyfriend actually had to do the honors of coming up to me over the weekend as I was standing in front of my open fridge, just doom scrolling. And he was like, you need to get the fuck off your phone. Like, put your phone away today. You can't be doing this. Sometimes you need somebody to tell you that, but even better if you can do it for yourself. So having boundaries around things like that so that you can protect your energy or cultivate enough good energy to be able to show up in whatever you need to show up in. For me, it's this. It's for you guys. Some other things that help me when I feel like I'm in like this tornado, again, like this chaotic time, or just overwhelmed by things in my own life or the suffering of the world. Although it may sound weird to say when all feels chaotic around you, but having routines Routines can be that one anchor point that saves me when everything else feels just insane. It gives me a sort of grounding that I can rely on. And also in creating your routines or changing your routines during times of extreme stress or chaos or heavy emotions or change, whatever may be going through your life right now, I always like to keep it really simple. I like to boil it down to the bare basics. Like, what do I need to get done today? You know, maybe that's like getting out of bed, brushing my teeth, working, you know, these like things that you have to do. And then I like to also add on the anchor points that I know actually support me in feeling my best. And don't make this too complicated, okay? This is not the time to be like, I'm going to start running 5 miles every morning and I'm going to do yoga every night and sauna and get back on my skincare. Like, this is not the time for that. Like, cut it down as much as you can. But those like hard hitters, like maybe it's meditating, maybe it's having an hour in the morning to journal or to just sit there and feel while you drink your coffee, and whatever comes up, you have that space to either let it flow, have a good cry, or to journal it out, or to, you know, EFT tapping. I personally love tap it out, meditate, whatever it might be. That's something I've been doing, is just creating more spaciousness at the start of my day and being loose with like what I fill that with, not being rigid of like, you've got to do this hypnosis and you've got to do this meditation, more just holding that space to be off my phone during that time. Okay. Don't fill that space with stuff that isn't useful for you, but having that time to just kind of sit with what's coming up for me that day and go through my spiritual, mental wellness toolbox of the things that I know that best support me. So that could be journaling or meditating, or as I mentioned, EFT tapping, or just fucking being with the feelings, to be honest. But creating a routine around that, one that's going to help you to make time for that processing or for helping you to get your energy right, is a way that I like to put it. And then just knowing when you're doing certain things can be that singular point of stillness amongst all the craziness that really helps to ground you. Do not underestimate the power of a routine, and ask yourself what routine is really going to support you right now. Again, it's not a time for like stretching yourself or adding these new sort of things. It's really boiling it down to the basics and then having that space for your mental and emotional well-being to be cared for and to align your energy, to be able to tap into your light. And in other cases, sometimes the routines just go all the way out the window, and that's totally cool and valid too. But anytime I'm feeling really chaotic, I'm feeling really unstable, I'm feeling like scared and anxious, or even feeling like I'm getting depressed, that's the first thing that I reintroduce, or that I really make sure that I'm locking into, is some sort of routine, bare basics, bare minimum, and then really making sure there's that chunk of time in my day to help me get my energy right, where I can just be with and work on myself mentally, spiritually, emotionally. Not with anything like rigid or strict, but just having that space. And when you're ready, when you feel like you felt and you've processed, and you get to the point, as I did over this last weekend, where I'm like, okay, I'm ready to use my energy in a different way now. I want you to start to think about and bring more focus and attention to the energy that you want to see more of in your own life and for the collective, for the world. Really bring attention and focus there. And it might feel like unnatural or hard at first, but what you focus on, you will see more of, okay? This is a spiritual, energetic law of the universe. If you focus on all that sucks and all that's going bad in the world, you are going to see more of what sucks and what's going bad in the world. You are literally marking that in your subconscious mind, telling your subconscious mind to go find more of that and bring it to your attention. No, this is not toxic positivity. You have to get out of that kind of perception and see again the energetic universal law of this, and also how the subconscious mind works, that scientifically you are going to see more of what you focus on. Again, this does not mean that you don't focus on and feel the feels and just be in the shit when you need to. But at some point you have to realize when you're just kind of feeding the machine and just keeping yourself in this perpetual loop of seeing more shitty stuff. And when you're ready to break out of that, this is how you start to do that. And that doesn't mean that at the same time you can't still feel like this shit sucks and there's shitty stuff going on, but it's just making some intentional time and intentionally throughout the day bringing your focus more towards what you want to see more of, again, for yourself and for the collective at large. This might be focusing on positive stories, miracles, stories of resiliency, comebacks, or possibility. Like I said, keeping your eye on that brighter and better future and vision for yourself and for the world as a whole. And lastly, my little takeaway that I'm going to leave you with is a quick, super quick exercise that you can do at any time that always just helps me to feel better. It helps me to ground. It helps me to connect with light again. And I'm also going to give you a tip for how to share it with the world, with other people, with cities, with whoever you want to send this light energy to. So simple. All you do is close your eyes. I like to roll my eyes back to like my third eye space. It just helps me kind of like whoosh, like lock in. Few grounding breaths. Never underestimate the power of the breath. I like to breathe in through my nose and then have an elongated exhale through my mouth. Do this until you feel it sink, like until you feel yourself just melt, okay? Everybody, it's going to be a little bit different. Maybe that's 10 breaths for you. Maybe it's doing it for 5 minutes. I do this breath all the time. It helps to activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which helps to bring you out of fight or flight. Okay, so this breath alone, take this, put it in your pocket, keep it with you. It's a lifesaver, okay? Now, once you're calm, regulated, you feel that you've like kind of sunk into a bit of that meditative state, I imagine light, golden white light from source coming through like the crown of your head and filling every single cell of your body. This is a visualization, but more importantly, it's an intention. So if you can't visualize, if you can't, and we all visualize differently, whether that's through feeling or through seeing, but if you aren't someone who visualizes easy, simply have the intention that every single cell of your body is filling with this light. And I mean every cell, okay? We do not skip over anything. It's every part of you is filling with this light. And then once I feel all the way filled up, I just like to imagine it just radiating out of me, just spilling over. And I just bask in this light as if I'm like laying out in the sun and just soaking in the sun rays. And then how you can share this light or send this light to a part of the world or to people that you love or the world at large is the same sort of process of imagining the light just coming over the space, the person, the entire world. I mean, imagine if we all do this for the entire world, like every single day. We should probably start doing that. And just imagine everything filling with this light. Yeah, that might be a little woo-woo for some of you. I don't know. I don't think if you've made it this far, it's woo-woo for you, but I believe that it works. I believe that we are so much more energetically powerful than we are even scratching the surface of. And we need all the light we can get right now in whatever the fuck is happening in this world with the darkness and the light and that rabbit hole. I'm not even going to go down, honestly, but we need your light. However you give it, whatever that means to you, we need you here. And I'm just so thankful to have you here. Thank you for listening to this. It's definitely longer than I planned for it to be. Holy fuck, way longer than I planned for it to be. My New Year's resolution was to make my podcast episodes like 20 minutes long. I just can't do that. I just can't do that. We'll try better next time. But thank you for taking this in and hopefully applying some of this and spreading your light with the world. However you do, it means so much to me. It means so much to every living thing on this planet. This world would not be the same without you. And do not forget that ever. You are so special. You are so needed. Thank you. Just thank you for existing. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to me yap for the last however long. I hope that it serves you. And with that, I am sending you so much love, so much good energy. Please go out and spread some good energy in the world today. Comment down below how you did, what your way of expressing your light today was. Again, it can be as simple as making your bed. Do that journaling exercise. Do the light meditation. And I will see you next time. Bye.